everybody, it's Dave and Wendy here from Be, Do, Learn, Have, Live, and we're on to our next segment of our journey so far of our personal development and learning about comfort zones and all sorts of things. So this one's going to be talking about Dave signing up for a lot of courses with Success Resources America, or as it was then New Peaks, and he paid about $10,000 for about 6 courses, none of which I was involved with because I wasn't interested at that point. So I'll let you talk about your courses, or one of them, or your favorite one.
Oh, one of them, okay. Boy, we could talk on our side. Okay, so
keep it on the down now, not too much.
That's right, I can't give any info. So these courses, the last video was about us talking about the JAR system, which was a piece mentioned within the MMIs that New Peaks or Success Resources now offers. And through that event, they also came up with the offering for many courses, as I mentioned, I believe, on the last video. So I did sign up for this grouping of programs called their Quantum Leap, which did involve about half a dozen courses or so. It varies up depending on when you sign on and who they've been speaking to at that point. But the core of them are our signature courses that were developed way back when by T. Harv Eker and are still rolling out today. My first one, because you could take these in pretty much any order they come up, and although at the point I believe I had 2 years to get them all in fact I haven't actually officially completed my second year yet, so I've got one more course to go on. But the idea is that you spread these out so that it's not a huge time crunch, that you don't have to do them all, although there have been people who supposedly have gone through the whole lot in about 6 months. But the idea is that they have some courses on the East Coast, some courses on the West Coast, and so I was trying to find some that were a little bit closer to me. One that meant that I'd spend less physical time traveling, but also that it would mean there'd be less cost in actual travel as well to get to and from the events. I think the cost at the events pretty much doesn't change a whole heck of a lot, but that would depend on venue and hotel and food prices and all that kind of stuff. But my first course there, which was the signature one that would have changed my life, was the one called Warrior. And it's not all about we're going to go to battle and we're going to wrestle all week and sort of do that stuff. It has, it's a whole experience of how you go through life and how you treat your day, and it's sort of it's very much based around mindset, but there's a lot of aspects to it, and it's about how you set your mind to be that of a warrior, or like a warrior from the old samurai meaning of a warrior, and that sort of just slipped my mind right now, but it's not, it's more of a way of being, and sort of how you tackle everything as if there is no return, there is no coming back from it. It's sort of the general premise behind the warrior mentality. It's not that, okay, I have to kill everything I see. It's, okay, if I treat every challenge, every obstacle, everything as I can't go on unless I complete this, then you just get a whole lot of stuff done. And that's more or less kind of about it.
And at this point I was at home resenting the fact that he was not enjoying himself, but more like learning and spending money again on flights and hotels and meeting people who I didn't know, and my headspace at that point was pretty negative, and I was feeling sorry for myself, which sucked, but but we're in a different position now. But in those days, I was kicking myself. Well, retroactively, I'd be kicking myself to say, get your ass moving and go and do something. But this is how our journey has been. It's just been Dave getting way ahead, and then me sort of moving along slowly, and then suddenly I've been gradually catching up, which we'll get onto later on about how I was inspired into all this stuff. So, so in the February of 2017-ish, I was making up a vision board because we've all watched The Secret, and vision boards are a great thing. So I made a vision board, and there was 2 people I wanted to see. There's a singer from actually the Faroe Islands called Ivor, who's got fantastic music, and we've bought most of her CDs. We just happened to come across her on on YouTube one day. And also another person called David Bard, who's a singer from England, does a lot of folk music. They were on my board, and lots of other things were on my board too. And then one day I just happened to be on Facebook, and I saw that Ivor was actually doing a show in London, in the UK, and I thought, oh, that'd be really, really cool. And then I noticed that David Bard was also doing a show within that same week in the north of England. So there was the universe speaking to us, so we decided to book a flight and go and visit, and we booked the flight, and we spent about a week in England.
Going back to this whole week that we booked and we'd been on, which was a lot of fun seeing these two artists, we also have to throw in that mix at this point, because I've been doing Mary Morrissey's program, and in February I would have actually finished my 12 weeks. That would have ended in some point in January. And obviously I had my dream of going into space. Well, one of these things is, under Mary Morrissey's program, is you can't know, and you're not expected to know, how you are going to arrive at whatever you're going to do. So the thing is that figure out what you can do, what's your next step, and take it. So for this whole space thing, I was like, oh, okay, well, what's my next step? Let's go have a look at Virgin Galactic online. And so I went and had a look, and I went through and I read all their pages, all that information, and then sort of figured out, okay, let's apply to be an astronaut. I mean, I couldn't find any more information out, so why not apply to be one? So I ended up applying online to be an astronaut, and over like a few weeks I ended up having some emails going backwards and forwards, and just as we'd booked this week away, I'd heard back from the people in the UK, because that's where their head office is, and they said, you know, sure, you know, wouldn't mind meeting you. And I'm like, well, hey, just so you're aware, right? I mean, I want to be, you know, this is my commitment to becoming an astronaut, but just, you know, I don't actually have any money that you need right now for me to come on board. So at this point in time, it's $250,000 US to get yourself a seat reserved on the flights. And I'm going, okay, well, I don't have that, but, you know, I'm willing. So so that's fine. And I said, well, just so it happens, I'm actually going to be in the UK, so maybe, you know, I can meet up. And I got an email back saying, yeah, no problem. So it's okay. So we ended up rolling that one into our week while we were out in the UK. So it really was a vision board, because I had my vision board, and hey, Virgin Galactic and getting my butt into space is kind of like featured quite heavily on that.
And we were also in London to see Ivor's concert, and it turns out that where they've met Virgin Galactic was like 2 tube stations down on the underground, which is pretty cool as well. Yeah,
it's only a few blocks away, so it really didn't take long to actually get there. It was nice and straightforward, which is pretty simple. So that was pretty cool.
Right.
And we're going to get into this. Okay, so let's talk about our vision trip. Now, also at this point, we'd already planned and pre-booked the fact that we are, as a family, we're going back to the UK to see different areas about 2 months later for an entire month. So we'd kind of had this planned out that we were going to be away for a month in a little month's time. So it came up, it's like, well, it seems a bit crazy for us to go to the UK at this point, but it's like, okay, you know what, things seem to be aligning. Certainly when my emails came in from meeting with the Virgin Galactic people, it was like, okay, yeah, this is coming together, so let's follow this. And so at that moment in time, we hopped on the plane, we did our week. Wendy and I just went, we left the kids at home looking after the animals and everything else here. And we had an absolutely fantastic time in the UK. We'd seen both these artists. These were both very small, intimate venues to go and meet them. I think with Ivor, this was her first venue actually going, first UK gig, and it was held in this tiny church, and I think they may have had possibly 100 people or something in there, and we were, I mean, I wouldn't even call it front row, but we were like at the edge of the stage. In fact, I think I probably bumped my head on the speaker a couple of times, but we were right there, and with Dave the Bard, again, this was actually in a community hall. There was maybe 100 people or something there. We ended up, I don't know, doing a, wouldn't say a can. We did some sort of folk dance with him at one point in the evening, and had him singing, and he actually ended up singing a song for us, because we were, I think, probably the furthest people from his venue to come and visit him. So from Canada. So he ended up singing a song sort of more or less dedicated to us, which was one that we wanted to hear anyway, which was pretty cool.
Do you want to talk about your
my spacey?
your spacey bit, and then you can leave that in for the next couple of videos?
Yeah. Okay. So we'll our time is getting up on this one, so we'll get in here. So obviously part of this week, one of the big things for me was going to see Virgin Galactic, and I was like, oh, I was happy as a little schoolboy. I was kind of very excited there. So I was expecting to go to the headquarters, and I thought, oh, hey, you never know, old Sir Richard might be there himself. Not that I was sort of expecting that, but it's the headquarters, so hey, maybe not. And it's not just Virgin Galactic. There was all their Virgin Enterprises all kind of seemed to have people in this particular building. But I was actually only expecting to just more or less go in and have like a 15-minute, oh, hey, how you doing? Oh, this is me. You know, I just thought I'd say, you know, whatever. It's Dave, great, you know. And so I was surprised when the lady I'd been emailing backwards forwards to, who was actually the sort of the coordinator and the recruiter for future astronauts, came down and actually met me and then took me up to their offices. I was also met with the, as he was described to, like the second in command, or the second person hired by Richard for Virgin Galactic. You know, so this is Stephen Attenborough, who's sort of basically the big sort of overseer and organizer of a lot of things for Virgin Galactic. And him and Rose ended up speaking to me in this comfy corner office for about almost an hour. It was like 45 minutes to an hour, something like that. I was speaking to them, just finding out a bit more about what the future astronauts did, and learning, because they, you know, there's a lot of this that they don't tell you online, you don't see, and I end up finding out that there's actually this whole awesome community behind the scenes of future astronauts, where they do actually get together at various points in the year. Occasionally Sir Richard Branson himself kind of gets involved in some of these, depending on what's going on. And so, you know, they had meetings, private VIP meetings at the UK Natural Museum or the Science Museum. You know, after it had all closed down for the day, they'd met in there and they'd spoken to other astronauts and that sort of thing. They'd had a private tour of CERN, which is the underground, you know, collider. They, you know, there's been a whole whack of things that went on, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, now this is something that I do want to become involved with. So how can I get involved with that? Well, okay, I have to be a future astronaut. I have to pay my money and wait and all that kind of stuff. But it was really just the fact that they were spending time with me. They were asking about me and my family and kind of what my drives were and where I was going and what business I was in and what I was doing. And it was all, you know, just really nice, easygoing conversation. And I thought, wow, this is totally me. This is, yeah, I'm a part of this.
And they gave you a card, which we'll talk about in another video.
Yes, and they gave me a card, which will keep you in suspense until the next video. So with that, we'll wrap this one up and catch you on the next one.
See you in a bit.